Imagine a burglar who breaks into your home. He doesn't steal your money, he doesn't break your windows. Instead, he quietly installs a microphone into the very phone you hold in your hand, and he listens. For months. This is the chilling nightmare that Washington woke up to in late 2024. No gunshots, no explosions, yet intelligence officials are calling it a digital Pearl Harbor. Deep inside the fortified server rooms of AT&T and Verizon, a phantom was hiding. This wasn't just a hack, it was a total subversion. The group known as Salt Typhoon didn't just breach the telecom network, they did the unthinkable. They seized control of the government's own lawful wiretapping systems. The Watchers became the watched. Every secret, every classified order, potentially flowing directly into the ears of an adversary. How did a single group bypass the strongest digital shields on Earth to turn America's own eyes and ears into a weapon against it? To understand the magnitude of this breach, we have to look past the usual headlines of stolen credit cards or leaked emails. This wasn't a smash-and-grab robbery. It was a siege on the very architecture of the internet. For decades, the digital world has operated on a fragile trust. The belief that the backbone of our communication, the massive cables and routers managed by giants like AT&T, Verizon and Lumen, were secure fortresses. We were wrong. Enter Salt Typhoon. In the chaotic zoo of cybersecurity naming conventions, Typhoon designates a threat actor based in China. But unlike the noisy ransomware gangs that lock up hospital computers and demand millions in Bitcoin, Salt Typhoon operates in absolute silence. They are not thieves, they are spies. And they are disciplined, patient, and terrifyingly efficient. Intelligence agencies believe they are part of a broader strategic shift, a move away from mere intellectual property theft toward something far more dangerous, pre-positioning. The goal isn't just to watch, it is to burrow so deep into critical infrastructure that, should a conflict ever erupt, they could simply flip a switch and plunge their adversaries into darkness. But Salt Typhoon found a target that no one expected: the lawful intercept system. In the United States, telecommunications companies are legally required to maintain gateways that allow federal authorities, with a court order, to wiretap criminal suspects. It is a backdoor built for the good guys. It is supposed to be the most heavily guarded room in the digital building. Salt Typhoon didn't try to break down the walls, they simply stole the keys to that room. By targeting these specific systems, they gained the ability to see what the FBI sees. They could track who the government was investigating. They could intercept the calls of diplomats, generals, and political aides. And because they were using the system exactly as it was designed to be used, their movements were invisible. They weren't installing malware that antivirus software would flag. They were living off the land, using legitimate administrative tools to conduct illegitimate surveillance. For months, as data flowed through the fiber optic cables beneath American soil, Salt Typhoon was there, a silent passenger on the line. They were inside the routers that direct global traffic. They were inside the verification systems that decide who is allowed to connect. It was a masterclass in cyber espionage, executed with such surgical precision that the victims didn't even know they were bleeding. The infrastructure we rely on to call our families, coordinate our defenses, and run our economy had been quietly turned into a listening post for a foreign power. And the most terrifying part? We still don't know exactly how long they were watching before we finally blinked. The first crack in the facade appeared not with a bang, but with a whisper. It wasn't a blaring siren in a security operations center that alerted the world to the intrusion. It was an anomaly, a subtle deviation in network traffic patterns that should have been routine. Microsoft's threat intelligence teams, hunting for ghosts in a completely different sector, stumbled upon a digital thread that didn't belong. When they pulled on it, the entire fabric of US telecommunications security began to unravel. The investigation that followed was frantic, conducted in hushed war rooms across Washington and Silicon Valley. This wasn't a standard cleanup operation. It was emergency surgery on a patient that couldn't be put to sleep. The investigators from Microsoft, Mandiant, and the FBI faced a nightmare scenario. The attackers were embedded in the firmware of the routers themselves. These weren't just computers running Windows or Linux. These were the heavy-duty Cisco boxes that route the internet's traffic. To remove the intruder, you might have to physically replace the hardware, a logistical impossibility when that hardware is keeping half the country online. As the forensic teams dug deeper, the scope of the disaster expanded hourly. They discovered that Salt Typhoon had utilized a complex network of hop points. They routed their traffic through compromised small office and home routers, innocent devices sitting in living rooms across America to mask their origin. To a Verizon engineer looking at the logs, the traffic didn't look like it was coming from Beijing. It looked like it was coming from a suburb in Ohio. It was a masterclass in camouflage. But the true horror set in when investigators looked at what the hackers were accessing. They weren't downloading customer databases or credit card numbers. They were looking at call logs. They were monitoring unencrypted texts. And then, The smoking gun. Evidence of access to the court-ordered surveillance interface. The investigators realized with a sinking feeling that the hackers hadn't just broken in, they were looking over the shoulders of the FBI. The target list was the final blow. This wasn't a dragnet, it was a sniper shot. As the Wall Street Journal and other outlets began to break the story, the names associated with the targeted numbers sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Phones used by senior advisors to the Trump campaign, devices linked to the Harris campaign, top-tier diplomats. The hackers were tracking the communications of the men and women vying to lead the free world. Panic turned to paranoia. Every text message sent by a government official was suddenly suspect. Was it secure? Who else read it? The FBI and CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, issued urgent, classified briefings. They found themselves in a paradox. They had to communicate about a compromise of their communication systems. Using those very same compromised systems, they had to resort to in-person meetings and physical couriers, effectively pushing modern intelligence gathering back into the analog age. The technical challenge of kicking Salt Typhoon out was immense. Because the hackers had administrative privileges, they could see the investigators coming. It was a digital game of cat and mouse, played at the speed of light. Every time a patch was applied or a password changed, the risk remained that the attackers had left behind a web shell or a dormant backdoor, waiting to reactivate. The investigators were trying to clear a house of intruders while the lights were off, and the intruders had the blueprints. This phase of the crisis revealed a terrifying truth about modern cyber warfare. Defense is exhausting, expensive, and often reactive, while offense is patient, cheap, and invisible. For months, the most powerful nation on Earth had been unknowingly broadcasting its internal monologue to a foreign adversary. The investigation didn't just find a hack, it found a fundamental structural failure in the way the Western world connects. The secure backdoors, mandated by law, had become the ultimate vulnerability. There were no handcuffs, there were no perp walks. In the shadowy world of state-sponsored cyber espionage, the perpetrators rarely see the inside of a courtroom. The hackers of Salt Typhoon remain thousands of miles away, safe behind the Great Firewall, likely receiving commendations rather than indictments. The trial for this catastrophic failure did not take place before a judge and jury, but in the sterile, wood-paneled hearing rooms of the United States Senate and inside the panicked boardrooms of the world's largest telecom giants. The prosecution was the public trust, and the defense was virtually non-existent. As the directors of the FBI and CISA sat before Congress, the atmosphere was heavy, with a mix of frustration and resignation. The evidence presented was damning, not against a single criminal, but against an entire philosophy of connectivity. Senators, usually divided by partisan lines, found themselves united by a chilling realization. The backdoors, they had legally mandated for decades, the very tools designed to catch criminals, had become the ultimate weapon for their enemies. Witnesses from the telecom sector faced a barrage of inquiries. How could this happen? How could the gatekeepers of our digital lives be so thoroughly outmaneuvered? The answers were technical, complex, and deeply unsatisfying. They spoke of legacy systems, supply chain vulnerabilities, and the sheer impossibility of defending a perimeter that spans the entire globe. But the subtext was clear. The system wasn't broken, it was exploited exactly as it was built. The official attribution came swiftly, a rare move in the diplomatic dance of cyber warfare. The US government formally pointed the finger at the People's Republic of China. It was a diplomatic indictment, a public verdict delivered to the world stage. But unlike a criminal trial where a guilty verdict brings closure, this declaration brought only more anxiety. It was an admission that the war had moved from the battlefield to the server room, and the front line was now everywhere. The sentence handed down was a frantic, nationwide mandate. Rip and replace. A forced evolution. The FCC and CISA scrambled to rewrite the rules of engagement, demanding new encryption standards and a total overhaul of how lawful interception is handled. But for the victims, the politicians, the diplomats, the citizens whose private conversations were archived in a foreign database, there is no restitution. The privacy they lost is gone forever. The verdict of history on this event is already being written. It stands as the moment the world realized that in the digital age, geography is irrelevant. There are no safe distances, there are no secure lines. The final judgment is not a prison term for the hackers, but a terrifying new reality for us. We built a glass house, and we invited the world to throw stones. The dust has settled, but the air remains heavy. The Salt Typhoon breach didn't result in a blackout or a financial crash, but it left behind something far more corrosive: permanent doubt. In Washington, the way business is done has fundamentally changed. The casual phone call, the quick text message to a colleague, these are now acts of calculated risk. Old, secure landlines are being dusted off. Face-to-face meetings in soundproof rooms are back in fashion. We have regressed, forced backward, by the very technology that was supposed to propel us forward. This event marked the death knell of the open, global internet as we once conceived it. We are witnessing the acceleration of the splinternet, a fractured digital world where nations build high walls around their data, treating every packet of information from abroad as a potential biological weapon. The trust that allowed the world to wire itself together is evaporating. If you cannot trust the cables, you cannot trust the connection. For the average citizen, the impact is less visible, but equally profound. We live in an era where the concept of privacy is rapidly becoming a relic of the past, a quaint idea from the 20th century. If the most powerful government on Earth cannot keep its own communications private, what hope does an ordinary person have? We are moving into a reality where we must assume that everything we say, type, or transmit is being recorded, archived, and analyzed by an algorithm thousands of miles away. The breach exposed a fatal flaw in our modern existence. We have built our entire civilization on a foundation of code, assuming that the digital ground beneath our feet was solid. Sol Typhoon showed us that the ground is hollow. As we continue to race toward a future of smart cities, autonomous vehicles, and artificial intelligence, we must ask ourselves a haunting question. Are we building a utopia of connectivity, or are we simply constructing a more efficient cage for ourselves? The wires are still there, humming with data, but now we know we are not the only ones listening.
Support the truth. Don't look away.